Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to coaching this morning. Glad you could join us. So, of course, I'm your host, Will Cooper. Thank you, Joe Lowry, for helping with the technology issues this morning. And I'm joined today by our attorney, Mark O'Brien.
Hi, morning, Mark. Everyone. Good morning, everyone.
So today, we really want to get a running start at these pick-me letters. Which is, of course, a product of our fast-paced market. It's really competitive. So how can we, win the bid against really, frankly, the other buyers? If you really step back and think about it, sellers are willing to take, a full price offer. That's what they're implying when they put their property on the market at their list price. And that's not really the trick anymore, is to come in at what they're asking. It's really to beat out the other buyers. So you're trying to, compete against these other offers. So what's the product of that has been this, and maybe it's an old school idea because it's been around a while, where you might want to write a letter or have the buyer write a letter as to connect emotionally or socially with the seller, as a way to kind of win the bid. So, but I wanted to put it in that context because that's really what this is about, is this idea that we could separate ourselves. Okay. So today we want to kind of get a running start at that. These pick-me letters. So what are they? Mark, do you want to just tell everybody, like, what's your definition of these pick-me letters or buyer letters?
Goodness, put me on the spot.
Well,
I think what they are is they're tools to establish some familiarity and some rapport with a seller. That's in addition to the price and terms of your traditional offer, in order to somehow set you as a buyer apart from the other 10, 20 buyers. You're trying to establish a personal, emotional, familiar connection to the seller. That's how I define them, Will.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a, Mark and I like writing some of these letters, but let me give you a,
we're good at writing the bad ones.
Yeah. Just as an example. So it might look something like this. Can you guys see that? Okay. Yes. No?
Yes, we can see it.
You see it okay? All right. So it might sound something like this. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Allen, thank you for considering our offer to purchase on your home. They might say, I work for a tech company. My wife works for, my wife and I have 3 children. We're recently relocated, say from wherever. Our oldest child currently attends whatever school. Maybe that child knows one of their children. I don't know. We know one of your neighbors from church, brother and sister Johnson. So there's one, what we may see in a pick-me letter. So does that make anybody nervous? Does that make you nervous? Yeah, it should make us nervous because there's a couple things going on here. And so am I still sharing screen?
No.
Okay, sorry guys, because of my technical issues this morning. So part of our, I wanted to kind of, frame this in the fair housing. That's what it's all about. I know you know that these pick-me letters can violate fair housing and because of these protected classes. So one of the objectives today is to make sure we understand what the protective classes are. And I just wanted to run through some of these slides really quickly and just remind everybody that, this is all about equal housing opportunity. And there are state and federal laws that govern this, and that the Civil Rights Act was initiated in 1866 after the Civil War to discriminate, to put an end to race discrimination. And it's kind of evolved over time to be more specific. It's added national origin and color, and you can see these on my screen. Okay. So there's been further amendments later in '88 to pick up sexual discrimination, familial status, handicap, and other protected classes, even gender identity. And from the let me stop sharing for a second. From the code of ethics class that we recently had, we talked about a code of ethics that picked up sexual orientation and gender identity as part of an ethics violation if someone were to discriminate against this protected class or any of these protected classes. So this is why these pick-me letters are such a problem, is because they often inject facts about the buyer that put them in a protected class. And so let me give you another one. Let me give you another letter. How about this one? Okay. Do you guys see that? Dear Mr.
No, we
Mr.
can't.
Peterson. Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay. So it says, my partner and I are very excited about the possibility of calling Sunset Drive home. I've included a picture of both of us at the Lutheran Church charity event for refugees. It would be so nice for us to be so close to church and continue our service there. As you can see from the picture, my partner, Sharam, is of Afghan descent. So being close to church and working there would mean so much to both of us. I hope you would give our offer to purchase serious consideration. We would both be thrilled if you chose us. Okay. All right. Am I stop sharing?
Yes, you have.
Okay. Well, let's open this up, Mark. First of all, and by the way, here's what's coming, guys. I want to give you directive. Mark and I are both going to give very clear directive on what to do, what not to do here. And then I do have some bullet points and reminders from the Division of Real Estate that was recently in the newsletter about this issue. And the UAR has recently put out a live Facebook post about this issue. So we thought we'd give you some clarity on how to address this. First of all, were there protected classes in both letters? Mark, you want to start off and just kind of, and thank you for, by the way, for playing along in the chat. Mark, do you want to just talk about what protected classes were mentioned in these?
Sure. I think both letters mention familial status.
Yeah, the one where I've got children and my children,
right,
go to a school, right? Okay.
And the second one mentioned we and my partner, also indicating familial status, one of the protected classes.
Yeah.
We in and of itself indicates some sort of partnership, union, other than I, which we'll get into in a little bit, the way to write these letters if your client absolutely insists on doing them. We also had some national origin there, Afghan descent. I think there was a picture in the second example. So we had race and color and sex were presumably indicated in that picture, and religion as well, Lutheran, I heard.
Yeah, there was even a religious affiliation.
Right.
So is religion a protected class?
Yes.
Yeah, of course it is. So
absolutely.
We've had two different, even churches mentioned here. We've had, two different, and frankly, I think both letters from a personal standpoint, getting to know someone are just fine. Okay, so Mark, what's the warning here for everybody? I mean,
well, the struggle is, you hit the nail on the head for me. On their face, these letters seem fine because they're personal letters. Your people are typically proud of who they are. They're proud of their religion. They're proud of their familial status. They're proud of their national origin. So on their face, they're seemingly fine. The problem is that to the extent they identify factors about the buyer that exist in these protected classes, they put the seller in the position of potentially making their decision to accept or reject an offer based on one of those criteria within a protected class. That's where the problem arises. So while they seemingly are innocuous and kind of feel good on their face, they put the seller in a position where they may use that criteria something in a protected class other than price and terms and kind of what I call the four corners of the contract to make their decision. And that's where the seller becomes exposed to a FHA claim.
Very good. Very good. So we've got a duty here to warn the seller as part of our fiduciary duty is to warn the seller about the dangers of choosing someone and breaking this federal law and other protected classes that even might be state law. So believe it or not, guys, we have another category that Utah injects into this. It's unique to Utah, and it's source of income. In other words, that lenders may not, and we may not discriminate against someone if for say all of their income was from alimony. And I think that's originally why this rule was created, was to protect that. So if income is coming from alimony is income, period. So that's another interesting class here that's protected. Since so many of you are filling up the chat here, just a reminder on CE, it's a 1-hour CE class. It's kind of my surprise for everybody. I didn't want to make it a big deal and frankly get 300 emails like I did for the Code of Ethics class, even though it was so nice to speak to all of you. It took 2 weeks to get through those emails. But anyway, yeah, you can get CE, but you have to have your camera on for CE, and Joe's helping me monitor that. I'll probably go a little bit over time today to pick up just some slush time. If you joined about 5 minutes late, we can still get you in for the requirement, but just make sure your video's on, okay, guys? Because the requirement is that you actually attend the class, okay? So that's the rule for that. And I'm glad to have this for CE. Matter of fact, we should thank Dan Naylor, our education partner with Real Estate Institute School. He's been phenomenal, you guys. And there's more to come on that later about this partnership. But if not for Dan Naylor, we couldn't make this possible. So anyway, we can thank him more later for our CE today. So I wanted to pivot to a couple of these videos. Joe, go ahead and show the 1-minute video. This is kind of putting, these protected classes out there in for a landlord to consider, but I think it also applies to buy sell. And I think it's just a good refresher that frankly, society needs to shed its negative view of people who are different, maybe than the majority. And then the next video we're going to show, I don't know, we'll show all of it, but it's an undercover operation where I think it was done by either Dateline or NBC. I can't remember who did it, but it's an undercover operation where the actors are the real estate agent, and then these buyers that are well, I can't remember what race they are, but they're clearly not white. And they come into an open house, and the agent treats them very poorly. It's actually really hard to watch, even though you know that they're acting. But what happens is that the people who are not actors who attend the open house, what they were trying to see is that who would stand up or who would say something. So it's kind of interesting to watch this. Let's play video number 1, and then we can get your comments on that. Okay. All right. Video number 1, 1 minute.
Let's play a game. Let's pretend for a moment. You own an apartment building, and I want to rent from you. I have a steady job, I make a good salary, and have a good credit history. Would you rent your place to me? How about now? Do you still like me, or have your opinions changed? What if I have an accent, or a last name that sounds foreign? What if I have a disability? What if I'm a single parent? Would you steer me away? Would you close the door? Would you?
The Fair Housing Act protects your right to live where you want, no matter what your race, color, national origin, sex, religion, disability, or family status. If you think you've been discriminated against, call us. Fair Housing.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Well, thoughts, guys, on that? Anybody want to weigh in on that one? And Mark, feel free, or Kevin, brokers, you guys weigh in. Nobody wants to say.
It was
huh?
really, really well done. I mean, I think all of us have actually had that experience. If you've been in the business at all and done open houses and had people walk in, we all make snap judgments about who they are and whether they can afford the house. And it's really, sad that we actually do that, and you have to catch yourself occasionally. I will just tell you a personal experience. Somebody came to the office when I was selling real estate. I had a commercial listing downtown, and this gentleman was black. He was wearing overalls and a ball cap, no shirt underneath the overalls. And he says, "Hey, I want to buy your gas station downtown." And I drew a snap judgment that this guy was probably homeless. He was probably, just saw the sign and found out where I worked and showed up. And I think I treated him fairly poorly. And come to find out, he was actually a billionaire who actually built naval bases all over the country, owned a huge commercial construction company, lived in about a $10 million home in Holiday. And he just was a unique individual. We became really good friends, and he tried to buy the gas station, but it was subject to a bunch of other things. And there was a lot of cash there. So I made a real bad mistake on that one.
Thanks for sharing that, Kevin. I mean, I think we are all, we get to know each other, how people are dressed, and, just maybe where they're from. But I appreciate that. I think Kevin probably speaks for all of us as we kind of meet people for the first time. And I have to admit, my grandfather was pretty racist, from the South, very racist. It was part of his culture, bless his heart. He grew up in a time where that's just what the norm was. We've come a long, long, long way. There's not a racist cell in my body. I mean, I really enjoy the uniquenesses of mankind and humanity, and I just find it really thrilling to find out about their unique journeys and who they are as people and know their story. And frankly, even emphasize it. If anything, I probably give protected classes more love. I'm probably discriminating against a Kevin Larson, because I would probably give somebody else more love, in kind of a weird way. But thanks for sharing that, Kevin. I do appreciate it.
I had a similar background. My mother was from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and there was complete segregation when she grew up there. And she was always warning me as a child against those people. So I had these filters set in my head, and I worked hard to overcome those over my lifetime. And the ultimate is to actually go to South Africa for 2 years and actually be a minority and see how it feels on the other side. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, when we talk about protected classes, it protects all classes. Or all people within these protected classes are protected. So if you are discriminating against someone and favoring, let's say, a minority over a majority, let's say you're favoring an Indian person over a white person, that's still discrimination. You're using that protected class, that identifying factor of race, to discriminate against, what we typically think maybe as a majority class. So it cuts both ways.
Yeah.
So what Will said, I may tend to favor the minority. Well, that's discrimination in and of itself.
That's reverse discrimination.
Right. But for purposes of FHA, it's important for us to understand that it's a protected class regardless of the race.
Yeah.
And if that becomes a factor for the seller or the buyer to make a decision on their buy sell to use in their making a decision, it's discrimination, or it can potentially be discrimination.
So let's go play the video where the agent is horrible, you guys. It's going to be hard to watch, I have to admit. But let's go ahead and play it. Joe, here we go. This is undercover operation at an open house. in an affluent area, and a minority couple walks in and interacts with other buyers.
In an upscale suburb of New Jersey, it's an open house. This $1.4 million home is for sale, but these folks are about to get more than they bargained for.
Hello, welcome. My name is Margot.
Hi, Margot.
Margot is the woman showing the home,
Nice to meet you.
but not everyone is welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Sure.
Okay.
What would you like to see?
The neighborhood is predominantly white. Will anyone speak up when she tries to keep it that way?
You know, it sounds like, you know, would be more comfortable in an urban area where there might be someone more like yourself, maybe.
Most people say nothing at first, but watch this mother and daughter.
You know, I don't know that you're in the right house. Yeah,
What do you mean?
you know, well, I know, there aren't a lot of people of color in this area.
Are you
I know.
for real?
And
That's illegal.
excuse me?
I'm gonna go. I'm appalled.
Well, I'm sorry, but you know, I was just trying to be realistic with them.
Well, then
You know.
obviously you don't live in this town because we do, and
Yeah.
everybody's welcome here.
They can't seem to leave the house fast enough.
I don't know
There wouldn't
where
be a
you
problem
come
with
from,
that.
but I've got to go now.
Well,
They have no idea that Margot and the African-American couple are actors working for us.
He's got it. Yeah. What's this? Are you wearing?
A hidden camera experiment to see how people respond to
And it
racism.
says, you know, we have a very nice, calm neighborhood. You know, we don't have a lot of altercations or things like that. You know, we don't have people that, you know,
trouble?
you know, well, I don't know.
You can tell this man hears everything, but at first we're not sure whose side he's on.
I have a suggestion. I don't know that you're going to accomplish anything more already, but you might want to just look at the house.
Well, we were looking in the house. I think that she was here to help us. And
Well, I am. I'm
Did you hear the
just
comment
trying.
that she made talk about
I heard some things.
colored and the neighborhood
I mean,
will
I'm-
feel comfortable? Do you think that's appropriate that she should say things like that?
What I think doesn't matter. I just don't think you're going to accomplish anything. And I'm not trying to defend her. I'll tell you what. I wasn't going to do this, but you know, if you wanted represent, I'm not going to give it to him.
Oh, you're giving
If you
it
wanted help, you know.
That's his business card he gives them. It turns out he's a realtor.
First, I was astounded that in this time, you know, in this century, that I was hearing what I was hearing.
And then you try to help the African-American couple out.
You know, I happen to have heard more than I thought was appropriate, and thought that, you know, we ought to move on and try and do something about it.
He's sincerely concerned, he's sympathetic, he's trying to find some way to make this situation right.
Dr. Jack DeVideo is a social psychologist and expert on race at Yale University.
But if you're really concerned about racism, you have to take an active step and confront the racist.
Now watch this young woman.
You know, you say you have children. You want them to fit in.
Her response is immediate, and she's having none of this.
I can tell you about the school system. It's excellent.
Do you not have African Americans in
We do,
this?
yeah. We
So,
absolutely do.
Yes, but I'm thinking, but these are people that aren't. Well,
I
you know,
don't
they're
think
not.
that's really,
I don't think they're like us. You know.
I have never in my life.
Oh my God. Can you?
Are you? I'm embarrassed. I'm so sorry.
Well-
Honestly, in my years on this earth, I've never experienced anybody saying anything like that. I apologize on behalf of this town. That is horrific.
I am
Well,
so
I'm embarrassed.
Well,
Like,
I'm
I gotta leave
I'm
this
just-
house, and
well-
I think that you should too.
This is so shocking.
I'm humiliated, to tell you the truth. I'm humiliated.
When we finally tell Mindy Shire that the couple are actors, she's still overwhelmed with emotion.
I'm about to cry right now. I'm so upset.
I think she responded wonderfully. Nobody had to prompt her. In fact, she was energized. She walks up with a lot of energy to really confront that situation, and she creates a bond with victims of racism, that she touches them. What she did was something that breaks the norm, and that's what makes it heroic.
Will she be the only one to intervene that way? And what if the target of the attack is a Muslim couple instead?
I noticed that she's wearing a headscarf and things like that. What religion are you?
Muslims.
Muslims, Islam.
Muslims, but we don't have a mosque. No, I don't know that you would be welcome.
What do you mean we would not be welcome?
This woman is so upset by what she hears that she commiserates with another couple, unaware they're also actors working for us.
I mean, this is beyond discriminatory.
But she says nothing to Margot until...
Can I just say to you, do you think I'm wrong in what I'm saying?
You've made them uncomfortable.
The thing is, these people are from a country that blew up the World Trade Center.
They did not blow up the World Trade. They did not blow up the World Center. They didn't. I can't have this discussion with you. Because they look like perfectly normal people to me.
Just minutes later, Margot is at it again.
How are you here? I mean, are you from, you're not obviously not born here in this country.
No, we're from Egypt, originally.
Egypt, I see. So you're not Americans.
This woman's face says it all.
There are Jewish people, and do you get along with Jewish people?
Yes, we get along with Jewish people. We get along with everybody. I'm sorry.
Well, because we don't want to. We really don't want to have problems. You're coming with these foreign languages.
But I speak Arabic, and that's it. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, I know. But and we have terrorists, and what do terrorists speak?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I upset you. Okay, I don't know if I said something wrong.
Have I said something wrong to her?
I'm not going to get involved with this.
That's what she says, but watch what she does.
You're just blowing things out of proportion. I'm trying to look out for you.
You not live next to me? She's saying nobody wants to live next to me.
I would live next to her.
You would live. You wouldn't be worried.
No, I would not. There are all kinds of religions here.
Yeah, but they're not. I mean, yeah, but we're talking.
Everybody goes to their own place to pray.
Exactly.
And they respect each other's religions, and everyone should be treated fairly.
You have tears in your eyes.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. To go somewhere and just be, just someone without knowing you, without knowing anything, to just be so against you.
But this man knows what that's like, and he's the next visitor to our home.
I'm noticing your attire, and I'm just wondering, and your accent and things, that you're not American, are you? I'm just wondering if anyone has ever felt uncomfortable in your presence or anything like that.
What she's talking about?
What she said?
I don't know what she's talking about.
Excuse me, can I answer a
It
question or something?
is a problem because the Arab background, I don't think it makes sense for you to talk to them like that. I have an accent too, as you could see. So
yes,
I think your conduct is unacceptable. You should get her name, and report her. I will help you. This is unacceptable.
Well, I'm just trying
to. Your conduct is unacceptable, lady. You put your silence for sale. It's for sale for everybody. It's not like there is a list. You cannot check. Oh, you are Arab. You're not welcome here. This is unacceptable.
It turns out Francois Descorbet has himself been a victim of the same kind of discrimination.
What do you say to people who hear this?
They should speak out. They should speak out. There's no doubt of it. They should speak out.
But only a third of the people who overhear Margot's racist remarks confront her directly.
Francois, you're a hero, man. Thank you so much. You're the best.
Thanks, Joe. Woo! I told you it was hard to watch. Hard to watch. Thank goodness they were paid actors, and that was not some real recording of a real realtor at a real open house. But the social study here, I think, was to see if anybody would confront the person who was being racist. Of course, that requires someone who's okay with confrontation. Some are a little more practiced at that and okay with it or confident in that. Well, what are your thoughts, guys? What are your thoughts about hearing this or watching this? What comes to mind, and what can we talk out here? Nobody. Okay. Brokers, that means you. Sharon?
I'll say something.
Go ahead, Ramon.
Well, it was obviously over the top as far as being aggressive. I think it happens more often, but probably not as direct. It's probably more indirect, meaning that realtor really came after the people. I think, now I haven't seen anything like that, thank God. But I think a lot of people, it doesn't matter what the environment is. It could be Walmart, don't want to get involved in today's society. I mean, every day when the news, we see yesterday there were 2 post office people killed. Somebody else a manager was killed because they fired somebody. People are scared, I think, and don't want to get involved, I think is part of today's society, for whatever that's worth.
So Ramona is suggesting that maybe the discrimination or what is being done a little bit more behind the scenes, or not so blatant and blunt and obvious or overt, that it's more secretive or that. Anyone think that might be going on? Or yeah, Aaron, go ahead. Aaron.
So that was really hard to watch.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, but I'm like you, I cry at everything. I actually, when I was first in the military, I had this happen to me and a group of my friends. I was the only white person with my 3 Mexican friends, and we were going out to dinner in Montana in, had been like 1993-ish. And they refused to serve my friends. And I had their restaurant, we filed and had their restaurant blacklisted from the base because it's just ridiculous. And I am that confrontation person for sure.
Good for you, Aaron. Good for you. I'm sorry, you guys. I've had a few people text me that they were pretty would like to say something, but it says I'm literally crying. Kim Phipps, you had a comment. Do you want to weigh in on this, Kim?
Yeah, thanks, Will. I'm literally shaking. So with no due respect to Ramon, my 3 youngest children I adopted, and they are Black. And I can tell you from personal experience that it comes in all forms. Mm-hmm. And yes, we have absolutely seen it that aggressive here in Utah.
Really?
So I beg of you, all of you, if ever you see anyone behaving that way, to please be brave enough to speak out. It can be the smallest little comment, still say something. It's up to us to educate and make people aware of what they're saying. And sometimes it's said in ignorance, or that they're not, maybe they didn't mean it the way they did. So we can be kind about the way we react, but at the same time, it's not acceptable. I don't care if they meant it or not. They need to be told that it wasn't acceptable. So yes, it happens here in Utah. I've seen it personally. My children have experienced it in that aggressive and it's less aggressive. So it is happening.
Interesting. Kim, thank you for that. So how old are your children now?
So I actually got my youngest first. We adopted him when he was a day old. He is now 19. And then we got my son next. He was 7 when we got him. He is now 24. And then my daughter we got when she was 5, and she is 21 now.
And they're all African?
They are. Yeah. So, they're African American. So my daughter actually was born in Ethiopia. So she came from Ethiopia, but my other 2 were born here in the States.
Interesting. Well, my goodness, you guys. First of all, Kim, I knew some of that about you. I didn't know all of that about you, but I love you even more than I did already. What an amazing lady you are.
Well, thank you. I'm the blessed one.
I'm sure. I'm sure that that's very, very true, because what a unique journey. This has been a weird, humanity's going through some things right now, aren't we? You know, we're trying to be better, and I think our hearts are in the right place. The majority of people want to be exactly what Kim was saying, what Ramon was saying, and what Kevin was saying, and even, you know, what Mark and I have already said about this issue is we want to love and care and respect for everyone's background. And look, their uniqueness is beautiful. And I know, look, everybody, I think generally people would say that. So let's go back to, how does this relate to our roles as agents? And what do you do when a buyer wants to, you know, say who they are to a seller? When does this cross the line? What if a seller wants to be choosy or picky based on one of these protected classes? You know, like, I mean, have you ever had anyone say, boy, it would sure be nice if our neighborhood had more children, you know, or, you know, I'd love to leave my neighbors with some children, or someone say to, you know, they have a member of our church. I mean, these are sometimes so unintentional maybe, or they, you know, this is where I think we have the potential of crossing over and crossing the line. Mark, so what are we kind of put together some do's and don'ts here. I'll start out with a simple one here, and then Mark, you get ready to add to this on the do's and don'ts. But sure. First of all, do not ever, 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 and there is no exception to this rule, ever write a letter for your buyer. Don't ever do it. Okay, there is zero exception to that rule. So akin to that is don't proof it if they insist on writing one. Okay. And very likely your advice, like 99% of the time, is don't write one. You know, like most, because that's where we get into trouble. All right. The other thing is don't deliver the letter if they did insist on writing it, you know? So that's first of all, the obvious. I took the obvious so Mark could take the less obvious.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, whether you're representing a buyer or a seller, you've got to inform them that this Fair Housing Act exists, and inform your seller clients the implications of receiving and reading a letter, and the implications of them potentially basing their decision to accept an offer or reject an offer based on the information that might be contained in that letter. So you've got to inform them and have them make a decision once you've informed them of the potential pitfalls and the potential exposure that your seller client has for reading these letters. You may advise them, you may want to think about allowing me to put across MLS that seller will not accept any buyer love letters or buyer pick me type letters. You can do that. So you as a listing agent can help your seller control that information coming from buyers. From your buyers, again, for your buyers, you want to indicate to them there's nothing against the law. There's nothing prohibiting buyers from writing these letters on their face. And arguably, you have a duty of obedience under the division rules to adhere to your client's instructions. And so if your client says, I want to write this letter and I want you to facilitate that communication to the seller, arguably you have a duty to do that. But you want to let them know, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, please do not include any of this protected class information in your letter. Don't identify yourself, your race, your color, your national origin, religion, familial status. You might want to write that letter from the perspective of I, so that you're not identifying any sort of familial status. And you'd want to keep it to things about the house. For example, it would be okay for your buyer, if they absolutely insisted on writing a letter, to say things like, I love what you've done with the landscaping. I intend to continue to manicure the lawn as you have. I love your views. Things along those lines. You'll notice I in no way implicated anything within the protected classes.
Yeah, and Mark, there you gave an example of what NAR used as kind of, it seems a little innocent, but remember with the statement that they made, like
Yes, one of the ones that NAR continually goes back to is the interior of your house is so warm, I can envision for many Christmases to come, all of my children running down the stairs to open their gifts beneath the tree.
Yeah,
obviously that implicates religion, familial status, your children. It's innocuous, of course, and you're being complimentary, and that's where we're a little bit different here from, you know, the extreme discomfort we all felt watching that video. The intent of these, there's no intent to discriminate or identify yourself so that the seller can discriminate. There's really not intent in these letters. It's just, you know, folks kind of saying, this is me, this is who I am, pick me. But the problem with them is they identify these protected characteristics, and the problem becomes when the seller uses those characteristics to make their decision.
Yeah, very well said. We're getting some questions to come across, and I wanted to hit on this because Trish Nichols just brought it up where, you know, we're calling these letters, Mark, but so often it's someone just writing an email, you know, like, and I think that's where the agent could slip in the trap here, is that they go to introduce who their buyer is by email to the listing agent. And pretty soon you've got the agent writing a letter, or what we would call as these pick me letters, but it's showing up inside an email. What Trish is saying is I usually write in my offer email a little bit about the buyers. And so what are those same warnings still apply here, correct?
Yes, all the same warnings still apply.
Yeah, so we're not going to be saying those things about the protected classes perspective of our buyer, you know, and I think this can be, and I like what Mark was saying here about there's no, you know, evil intent here. There's no intent to be, you know, disparaging or negative against anyone, or you're kind of just saying who they are, but you better be careful about how you phrase that and put that out.
Yeah, another tip I wanted to hit, Will, before we move on, is, you know, the agents, buyer's agents, and seller's agents, I would avoid the temptation to read or become in any way involved with the letters. I think you might have mentioned that, Will. And an additional kind of step, you know, creating the paper trail for your seller clients, you might have them just document why they accepted the offer. You know, some objective criteria. Just it can be in a simple email to you. I'd like to accept offer number 3 because I like the terms. The price is good. The timelines are good, and you know, they had a really nice pre-approval letter from a reputable lender in town.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the objective criteria upon which a seller should be making decisions, and it leaves out, it'll be really nice to have kids in the neighborhood, or another family for our church, or something along those lines. So creating that paper trail for your seller, so that if they are subject to one of these FHA claims from a disgruntled buyer, they'll have some sort of pre-existing written basis for their determination of accept or reject.
So Mark, you and I talked about there currently right now, guys, in California, there is litigation against a family involving a realtor in a protected class centered around a pick me letter. I am working diligently to try to find the unique facts of the case. We haven't discovered them yet, right, Mark? I guess they haven't surfaced.
Yeah, I've not found that one, but I did find there's a pending case. I believe it's in Rhode Island, and it didn't involve a love letter, but you can easily see how it could have developed from a love letter or a pick me letter. The claim or the allegation, it's a Fair Housing Act violation case, is that based on the buyer's name in the Rep C, the seller made a determination to accept an identical competing offer and not that person, because their name was arguably a distinguishing characteristic within a protected class. So that's a current pending case. That could have easily arisen from a love letter, but you can see how that case is developing. Now, there is also, you know, one way to fend this off would be if the division came out with a rule that basically said no love letters. You know, agents aren't permitted to participate in the communication between buyers and sellers. That may happen. Oregon's actually done that. Oregon has a state law that instructs real estate agents not to, or to actively prevent direct communication between buyers and sellers. So part of that is obviously the agent is not party to the middle person between buyers and sellers in transmitting these love letters or pick-me letters.
So just a couple questions are also, both Kim and Ramon have questions about when either the seller or the selling agent is initiating those requests, saying, tell me about the buyers. You know, I want to know what those going on. So maybe some guidance around that.
Right. I think kind of a hard line, and I alluded to this a moment ago, the division may come out with rules that address this issue directly. I think, we can't completely mute agents and say you can't say anything about the buyers or potential buyers, but I think agents have to be very careful not to communicate any information within these protected classes about the buyers. And just to talk generally about about who the buyers are without communicating familial status, sex, religion, race. That is where you potentially cross the line. And, it's not a safe harbor, but the backdrop to all of this is you've got to inform your seller when they ask about the buyer. I'm telling you this information not to base your decision on it. You need to base your decision on objective criteria, the price, the terms, the timelines. Don't base your decision on these factors, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about your buyer. But I'm purposefully not focusing on these factors that you cannot take into consideration. I think that's fair.
There seems, okay, so guys, I think that's the gem of the class, what Mark just said. This has got to be the takeaway. We have to change and pivot our discussions with our sellers to include now what it means to be objective about offers, okay? And how to not find yourself choosing offers based on protected classes. And it can kind of be innocent in a way, but then can turn into something that's very blatant. So, that's going to be our duty as a good listing agent, a good seller's agent, is to start having these conversations about what does it mean to be objective about an offer and the terms of the offer. And we're talking about fair housing here. And we have to put this into the presentation. I think that's the takeaway, Mark, is because that's a shift in what we've been emphasizing. I don't think we've been talking about that because even with absence of love letters, to Mark's point, there's last names here. There may be something that might indicate that there's a protected class, and we need to have this discussion. Does everyone agree with that? Everyone agree that we've got to put that in the conversation? I would love to know, Kim Phipps, are you still? Kim, what's your perspective on that? Do you agree with that we need to have this discussion inside the listing presentation now about being objective about offers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we do it at the listing appointment, then it's not a concern when the offer comes. So we've already discussed it. We are already on the same page of how we're going to present. I actually have started telling people in my listing appointments that it may be possible that we will get love letters, and please know I will not present them. So if you want to know something particular about the buyer, I'm open to have that discussion when that time comes, but please know if they send over an actual letter, I won't present it.
Okay.
So, and I have seen other agents putting in the agent remarks recently, love letters not accepted. So please don't send them. Like agents are starting to put that in the agent remarks on the MLS. So.
Right. We are seeing that. Thank you for that perspective, Kim. Let me pick up, going back to Ramon's question where the seller instigates this, tell me about the buyers. And remember, Mark was giving us some warnings here, guys. If you find yourself just generally describing the buyer, remember to, again, this is another opportunity to talk about choosing an offer objectively and not based on who the buyer may or may not be, right? So you're going to have to, again, you're back to this discussion. It's no different, frankly, than us warning people about as is, contract issues, deadlines, the earnest money, definitions of closings and settlement and funding and recording and all these things that go into a real estate transaction. This is every bit as important as any one of those discussions, and we need to have that. Okay, make sure I don't miss the chat. I'm going to pivot to the list that's in the newsletter from the division. So, and Mark, maybe this is about as close as we have right now to the division
guidance, right?
Yeah, division guidance. So here's what it says. Number one, educate your clients about fair housing laws and the pitfalls of buyer letters. So we've been talking about that. Number two, inform your client that you will not deliver buyer love letters, and advise others that no buyer love letter will be accepted as part of the MLS listing. Okay, so I think this is the opposite of what Kim is saying that she's seeing is no love letters accepted. We would never put, please send love letters to, right? Number three, remind your clients that their decision to accept or reject an offer should be based on objective criteria only. Mark, it's as if you wrote this. Number four, if your client insists on drafting a buyer love letter, do not help your client draft it or deliver it. Okay. And I guess even if in our obedience to instructions that we're getting a directive here that would probably trump that. Number 5 or 6 here, avoid reading any love letter drafted or received by your client. Even if your puppy dog is starving and wants you to, yeah.
I apologize. I've got my hand on the mute button now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's okay. So look, we don't read them either, or anything akin to that. The last one here is document all offers received and seller's objective reason for accepting an offer. So again, Mark has already mentioned this. Remember, why did we pick offer 3? We picked it because, we like the deadlines. We like the buyer's qualification letter. We like the deadline for close and of course the price, right? So, so there you go. That's straight from the division newsletter. It just came out about a week ago, and I think that's excellent advice. You can see how we can. I think for the most part, people are trying to do the right thing, and they're not discriminatory per se, but they might inadvertently or innocently find themselves in a bad spot here. So we need to warn them. Okay. All right. Before we put a bow on it, we've got about 5-7 more minutes. What else, guys? Any comments, questions, or thoughts here? By the way, before you go, you're going to have to list the protected classes. So be prepared for that. Matter of fact, while you're sitting there, your homework, go ahead and get ready to submit in the text chat all the protected classes. Don't do it one at a time. Just go ahead and compile them. So before you go, you're going to send in all the protected classes. Okay. And look, there's no, it's not a pass or fail. It's more to be involved. Okay. So try to come up with all the protected classes. Right. But any comments or questions? Julie, you have one? Go ahead, Julie. Julie Sala.
So what about if an offer gets chosen because of pets, because the seller has pets, the buyer that they chose has pets, and they made a comment, oh, we love cats, you love cats, or so it's based on pets, or maybe somebody else put in the chat something about being a jeeper or a mountain climber. I mean, what if you establish rapport or relationship based on something beyond the protected classes, but it's clearly something that clicks between the buyer and the seller? What, are we in trouble?
No. In that, well, it would be the seller that would be in trouble, right?
Right.
And no, those things, being a Jeep person or being a dog person or a cat person, those are not protected classes. If you're outside the protected class, that is a criterion on which someone could make a determination, as strange as it may seem to some of us, but
No,
that's
it's not strange.
that is actually acceptable. I mean, those pet owners are not a protected class here.
Yeah.
And again,
And
it's
the pet
important
owners are fierce.
right.
Mark, I've got a question.
Yes.
I've seen offers come across my desk. Agents have brought them to me saying, do I really have to present this counter offer or this addendum, where the buyer and or the seller have actually done a narrative at the top of the addendum and then changed some terms below. So in effect, they snuck in a buyer love letter in an addendum. Can we refuse to present those?
I don't think we can refuse to present them. I think we advise the buyer about the ramifications of that addendum and what presenting it, it would depend on the language in it, how I would advise the buyer. But if in that addendum is language that, identifies characteristics of them within one of these protected classes, I'd strongly advise them to reword it. Can you object to presenting it? No, you have to present all offers and counter offers to the seller.
Yeah, they literally went on that whole paragraph, basically hitting every fair housing violation possible, and then said, and the price will be changed from this to this.
Right.
Because the agent obviously didn't want that in a love letter, but they tried to sneak it in an addendum, and they basically told their agent, if you won't deliver this, I'll find an agent who will. And in those cases, we may have to end a representation if you have a client like that.
That's right. Yeah, it's just educating that buyer on the ramifications of that, because you're really, you have to play out how this plays out in real life. And the way it plays out is that addendum is delivered, or that love letter is delivered, and that buyer is chosen or not chosen, and a disgruntled buyer brings a claim against the seller. It's the seller that is going to have to defend against this action, and the seller is going to look for all parties who are culpable in the transmission of that protected class information. And of course, they're going to look to the agents. So you as a seller's agent or a buyer's agent, it's just important to educate them on the ramifications of delivering this non-objective criteria, I'll call it, this protected class information, and the exposure that creates for sellers and buyers. I mean, if that buyer, Kevin, won the offer, and they close, well, the house is subject to, the property subject to litigation from a disgruntled buyer that's going to drag the seller, the buyer who won the bid, and the disgruntled buyer into a lengthy court case, potentially. And that's what you as agents that's the information you have to transmit to your buyers and sellers as the potential problems that they're creating with these seemingly innocuous, although your addendum language doesn't sound like it was necessarily innocuous.
Oh, it's pretty overt. They were doing it on purpose because the agent was refusing to do it for them.
Yeah.
They figured they had to present the addendum, so we'll sneak it in an addendum.
Well, understand that buyers are not violating the law by doing what they're doing. They're putting the seller in a position of potentially violating the law.
Good point. Good point. And we owe it to our sellers to keep them out of trouble. We do that all the time. Part of our job is to lower legal risk in our ever complex changing world. Fair housing and pick-me letters are now very much a part of that advice that we give. We may find, guys, I'll just make a little prediction here. We may start seeing more of a seller, I have buyer due diligence checklist. We may start seeing sellers like checklists, like warnings that you get in categories. We may start to see that, and this would be one of those.
It's an idea for another form, Will.
We convert the form. Yes. Yes. More legal assets. Okay, guys, I'm gonna put a bow on this. First of all, to qualify for the class, and just so we know that you're paying attention here, please go ahead and put in the chat the protected classes. I commend you for, first of all, being a part of coaching this morning and sharpening your saw. I think this has been fantastic discussion this morning. I appreciate Mark's prep on this and the input from so many, but particularly Kim Phipps she just signed off on the class, but particularly like that. I think I'll forever remember her point, and also Aaron. what you brought today. And you know what? If Aaron and Kim didn't show up to the class, it wouldn't be as great as it was. I'm constantly reminded that we make a great class, not the preparation of, say, Mark and I. And so I commend you guys for being great people, fantastic teammates, and loving each other. As I always say in my sign off, get out there and find someone to help, because believe me, they need you. You know, you're the solution, and they're out there. So let's go find some more people to help. Thank you for attending the class, everyone. Go ahead and undo the recording, Joe.